welcome back to Grandpa and the Millennial. I'm Natasha, the Millennial, and I am here with Anthony, the Grandpa, and another very special guest today. Before we introduce him, I do just want to remind everybody, as always, hopefully you're getting tired of listening to this, but also that you've already done it, but please like, follow, and subscribe to all of our pages. On LinkedIn, it is titled Tell Us Your Story, and on Facebook and Instagram, it is titled Grandpa and the Millennial. We appreciate the support.
Hello, everybody. Thank you, Natasha. Like all episodes, I'm incredibly excited. And today we have a very old friend and a very good friend of mine. And when I say old, we've been friends for a very long time. Not that he's old. But there are some great stories I have with this guest that we're not going to share on the podcast. But our guest today is Shannon Conaway of Conaway Geomatics. He is the CEO of Conaway Geomatics. So welcome, Shannon. Welcome to the show.
Thank you for being here.
Well, thank you, Natasha and Anthony. Yeah, and I guess really quickly, just a little bit about Conaway Geomatics. We are a land surveying and GIS firm headquartered in Southern California. We work on projects all over the state. If you think of what we do, think of infrastructure, pipelines, electrical lines, roadways, railways. Those are the kind of projects that we work on. And I'm excited to be here and talk to you guys today.
Yeah, we're really excited as well. And I think, Shannon, you're our first CEO. Possibly a first CEO. I'm glad I know you and I'm not intimidated on this call.
Speak for yourself.
Yeah. Well, we have 13 people. So, I mean, that's, take it for what it's worth.
Be proud of where you're at, my man. Why don't we start off by, tell us your story. Where'd you grow up? I know you have a big family. Tell us a little bit about your siblings and let's go through the journey.
Sure. Yeah. So like I said, I am from a big family. I'm the oldest boy. I'm one of 11 kids. I was born in Southern California. My father was a civil engineer working primarily in public practice. And so we wound up the family moved around a lot as he was moving into different positions. And so when I was really young, we moved to the Bay Area, well, actually to Sonoma County. We lived there in a couple of different places. We moved from there to Sierra County up in the mountains. From Sierra County, we moved to North Carolina, where I went to junior high school, which was an interesting experience in the early 80s. The Tar Heels are big, though. But and then from there, I moved to Las Vegas. Went to most of my high school years in Las Vegas. Halfway through my senior year, we moved to Ventura and graduated from Ventura High School. So that's kind of my upbringing or experience I had there.
So one of 11 is huge. Was mom and dad plan on having a big family? Give us a little bit of background there.
Sure. Yeah, it was interesting. For us older kids, we had kind of a different life than the younger ones. We had somewhat of a charmed existence. My dad was a civil engineer in the 70s working for the county of Sonoma. We had really nice property out in the country in a little town called Freestone in the Redwoods, and had horses and cattle. And we skied many times a year and had some pretty nice vacations. And my parents kept having kids, and things started getting tighter. And so as we started moving, we went around. The charmed existence went, it was interesting because life seemed pretty easy. And then things got tighter and tighter. And so we went from, having got these nice little lunches made for us to being on school lunches. And so that was kind of hard for some of us older kids to adapt to. The thing I'll say about growing up in a big family, and what I do want to say about my parents is that very loving. Definitely, they did a really good job. They stayed together through all that, which is pretty incredible. And, I had a lot of support from them. The challenge with a big family is it's attention. Everybody's starved for attention. And so with that, everybody's kind of acting out or trying to get attention. It creates a lot of jealousy, and it's interesting dynamic with just how people try to get along as we've gotten older, even when we were younger. When we were all in the same house together, we have these massive eruptions and fights, and you kind of get everything out in the open. And as we've gotten older, things have kind of separated. So definitely challenging.
Yeah. Go ahead, Natasha.
And what about moving around? So moving around so much, what was that like for you? And I know you said like middle school and then high school. So what was that like?
Yeah, it was. It sucked. I'll be honest with you. It was really hard.
Yeah.
I didn't enjoy it. I went from when I was younger, I did not do well in school, but I did really well in athletics. And so I went from being, kind of the shortstop and batting cleanup on the little league team to barely making the team. We moved to a new town and have to try to kind of prove yourself all over again. And some of the areas were less kind than others. We moved from Sonoma County to the mountains. That was a lot of fun because we were in this beautiful mountain community and this small school, and that was fun. But when we moved from Downeyville, which was in Sierra County, to North Carolina, that was the ultimate culture shock. We had a hard time understanding what the people were saying. It was the early 80s. It wasn't the cosmopolitan area that North Carolina is now. It was pretty backwards, and so that was a big adjustment and really hard. Junior high school too, which wasn't easy. So yeah, I didn't appreciate it. Looking back on it is actually really good for me. I was a really shy kid, and so moving around had forced me to meet new people and get out of my comfort zone, and really kind of help form who I am today. So, looking back on it, I'm glad I moved around and we did what we did and had a lot of experiences. But at the time, I did not enjoy it one bit.
It sounds like it. Yeah. It forces you into some of that, but it's good that you got something out of it.
Yeah.
So going into high school, family of 11, your oldest child, would imagine, and I want to tie this later, but I would imagine you learned some leadership and communication across a family that size and what you'd be able to translate. But were you into sports? Were you in the band? Were you just an ace student? What was happening in high school?
Yeah, A student. No, I was a terrible student. Matter of fact, I'll take it back a little bit because I think this is important. I struggled in academics. I was early on. I think around second grade, I was tested and I was labeled with learning disabilities, and so they put me in a special class. And so this was a hippie school in Sonoma County, and the class was, the time the conventional thinking was, well, we need to not give him structure. What we need to do is just have it open so he can make a decision where he wants to go and what he wants to learn. And so what I did was I learned nothing. He said, I'm going to navigate around to go between math and English, and right over here I can just hang out and not do anything. And so I literally did that for third grade and fourth grade. And so my family moved and we went to that little town, and the school was kindergarten through 12th grade. It had 128 kids. And it had a special education teacher with an assistant. So the first thing they did was they tested me, and they go to my mom and go, well, he doesn't know anything. He's like, they're like, well, what do you mean? And she's like, he doesn't know his multiplication tables. He, can't spell cat. I mean, this is bad. And so they put me in that class. I was in fifth grade. And so I would spend half my day in the special education class and the other half my day in the fifth grade. And so in the special education class, Miss Carrier, who I'm very thankful for, would skill and drill me constantly. It just was, and it was me and three other young lads. We didn't have time to space out or do anything. We had structure. And so through that process of being in her class from fifth grade, and they held me back in fifth grade. And so I went to fifth grade again. At the end of 2 years of that, I was actually caught up with my class in sixth grade. And so when I left, the classroom, of course, was fifth and sixth grade was in the same classroom as that small of a school. But they promoted me to seventh grade. Wow. I was never actually in the sixth grade. So that was part of that experience. So my poor student habits kind of carried through. And so it did help kind of at least establish where I felt more comfortable in the classroom somewhat. But I guess my very poor studious abilities, I don't be able to concentrate and focus. And if something interests me, I would go all in on. If it didn't interest me, I literally would not spend any time with it. So the process, I also developed, math phobia, where I thought, well, math, this isn't my thing. And so as I went along, I did enough to pass seventh grade and eighth grade and then ninth grade. As I was going through, the one thing I did get interested in, there were two things. It was sports, which I really enjoyed. In high school, I played football. It wasn't any good, but I really enjoyed it. And I really I got involved with auto shop. So I did 4 years of auto shop. I did 2 years of wood shop. I did 2 years of welding. So I really liked the industrial arts. And I got straight A's in those classes. I enjoyed them, and I barely passed the other classes. So in my mind, I wasn't going to go to college. I was going to work in the industrial, do something in the trades, or go in the military. So that was kind of my academic experience getting through high school. Now, as far as leadership goes, so I'm the third oldest. I'm the oldest boy. there's things that you learn there's other responsibilities, particularly my parents kept having kids, where essentially you're kind of helping raise the younger ones. That I think there's a lot that I can apply from raising kids to leadership. There's a lot of similarities with being consistent, being fair. You need to learn those processes, because that's really what helps develop the relationships with people, right?
Patience for sure.
Yeah, I didn't have a whole lot of that.
So when you're going through high school, and you said you thought you were going to go into the trade, so it sounds like you had a pretty good idea of what you thought your future was going to be.
Yeah, I was going to go to the military. So I was tossed up between the Marines and the Army, and I was talking to both of them, and I was so excited about it that the National Guard approached me, and they're like, "Hey, you can go active duty anytime, but if you want to go in the National Guard, you can go to basic training between your junior and senior year of high school." I was like, "Sign me up, man! I'm in." So I went. I was actually a tanker in a unit in Las Vegas, and so I went to basic training, Fort Jackson, South Carolina, between my junior and senior year of high school. Came back a couple of days before Hell Week in football, and best shape ever.
Yeah.
Football, the easiest Hell Week ever. And so I was, in my mind, I was going to go active duty. And so I finished up, I barely finished up high school. My dad always say, like, he goes, "Yeah, we didn't think you were going to graduate to the end." He goes, "Oh, so it wasn't until you walked down and got your degree that I didn't believe it." And so that's what I was kind of preparing for. And then, of course, the military, the recruiters will tell you what they want to tell you. So I started looking into going active duty. Well, they consider me prior service. And so I didn't like the jobs that I wanted to do, which were pretty much all combat arms. They were trying to push me into other things that I had no interest in. I had so much in mechanics, everything else. They're trying to make me like a wheel mechanic or something like that, which I'm like, why do I want to go to the military to be a mechanic? I want to blow up stuff and shoot things.
Yeah. Well, first, thank you for your service, Shannon. I absolutely appreciate it. And, a few veterans on so far, and how much I love our veterans. So thank you very much. When you were thinking of whether it was the Army or the Marine Corps or National, what was drawing you to that? Why were you thinking military versus college?
The one thing that in my struggles and studies, I did have a lady that was helping me with reading. And so she got me hooked on reading. Really got me hooked on reading. So we read a book on Pele and I thought that was fascinating. And then one book led to another, and I kind of found the library. So I really got into reading, and I gravitated to some military books and started reading about, mainly the books about Vietnam, and it just really started fascinating me. And I read more books about it, and then started visualizing it as something that I want to do. And I think a lot of young boys in particular, it's kind of police, firemen, military kind of things that we gravitate to, right, in our minds. And so that kind of stuck with me.
Yeah, we all want to blow things up and be the hero of the story.
Exactly, yeah.
So take us through, you graduate high school. What's the plan, and what do you do? Where do you go from there?
Yeah, there's pretty much no plan. I was kind of a rudderless ship, I do find it fascinating that it does marvel me that somebody comes out of high school and they know what they want to do. That's such a hard thing to do. I may have 4 kids myself, and so seeing how they're trying to pick what they want to do for their career for the rest of their life at 18, I don't know how you do that. And I definitely didn't have any vision for it. I thought, well, I'll go in the military. I didn't want to make a career of it, so I'll do that. When I looked into that, like I said, because of prior service thing, it was kind of a hassle. So I wound up doing, right out of high school, there was opportunity to do some active duty time with the Guard. And so I would do special training and stuff. So that kind of filled some time. And then I got a job setting tile, working construction. So I did that for a year while I was doing the Guard, off and on. And that transitioned. At some point, I worked for a mechanic for 3 months. And then I worked for another guy. We were building additions on houses. I did that. So there was about a 2.5 year period where I was basically kicking around between work on the National Guard and doing construction. And so I found my passion really when at the ripe old age of 20, about 20 and a half, I got my girlfriend pregnant. And the reality of like, I'm gonna have a baby, and I looked in the mirror. I basically was, working at Gold's Gym 2 hours a night, working construction. I was a total meathead, and I looked at myself in the mirror and go, I'm a loser. I got to get it together.
It's amazing
And
what
so
a child will do, what motivation that will provide.
I was like, wow,
the
20 is young
responsibility.
too. Yeah, and then you said the child. I was like, oh, okay, this makes sense.
Yeah, yeah. And so that did shake me to really look myself in the mirror. I mean, working in the trades, there's great jobs in the trades. There's great tradespeople when you're working, but there's also different levels of it. And so to me, I was looking around, the people that were 10 years down the road and seeing kind of where they're at and what they were doing in life, and they were struggling. And then I looked at what my dad was able to do, even with 11 kids. It was, like I said, things got real tight, but we always had insurance. We always had a house. We always had, food on the table, very stable employment, interesting employment. So I started looking, he has a degree. He's a civil engineer. It started intriguing me that I need to get a degree. Now, there was no way I was going to get a degree in engineering because I sucked at math. But I started really thinking about that. I did get some GI Bill from the Guard. I had some, even though I was a terrible student, I wanted to do it. So I went to junior college and I immediately failed algebra for the second time because I failed it in high school. And then, so I kicked myself around pretty hard about that because here it is. The baby was born and I'm trying to work and then go to school and not quite figuring it out, struggling, living with my wife's mom at her house with a baby. And so
I'm feeling your pain right now, Shannon. I can feel it. I remember those years.
Well,
it sounds hard.
Oh yeah. Well, those are the 20s. We'll get to that later, right? But it was it wasn't easy, but it was all my own creation too, right? I mean, I don't have anybody to blame but myself. And I guess some people have vision, direction. They're motivated. They're sharp. They know they're sharp. They get through school. They can navigate that. I had a lot of hangups I was carrying with me with being labeled with learning disabilities that I was carrying with me unbeknownst. And so that got in the back of my head. So I had a lot of self-doubt. The reality, what I found was I was a terrible student. That was my biggest problem. Not committing the time to put the effort in to learn and comparing myself to people who, some people do pick up things very easily. Some people are very bright. Most of us are not. We're average, right? And so the way we have to navigate life is that we have to study, we have to apply ourselves, and we have to work hard. And so that was kind of the process that I had to go through. So we were a child living with my mother-in-law, not doing too well, and we made the decision to move to Fresno because it was a cheap place we could go to college. And so we got a tiny little apartment and we picked up and moved to Fresno, and it was hard. We were on welfare, and lo and behold, we have another baby. I mean, being wildly irresponsible, and I guess it kind of comes with the age, right? And so it was not easy, but it did give me the motivation, direction, and once we got out on our own to come together and focus on my studies. And so I didn't know what I wanted to major in, so I went to the junior college. I went to Ventura College initially. I went to junior college up in Fresno, and I actually started applying myself. And I took algebra and got an A. And I took the next semester of algebra, I got another A. And then I thought, okay, this is great. At the same time, I'm taking kind of English, these other classes that are subjective, kind of up and down with those ones, and it all of a sudden hit me about, I think when I took trigonometry and I got an A in that, I go, it doesn't matter whether the teacher's a jerk or not. The right answer is the right answer. They can't do anything about it. English, they can just not like me. Give me a D, right?
It's subjective, yeah.
And so it started clicking. So I started kind of changing my majors. As I passed math classes, I went up in different majors that had kind of more math. And so I went from, I think it was political science initially, then I went industrial technology, and then I went, okay, and then finally I think I passed calculus. I'm like, all right, I'm going to be a civil engineer like my dad. And so I transferred into Fresno State, and before I even take a civil engineering class, under the School of Engineering, there's a survey engineering program. And so I meet and I run across the director, have a conversation with him, and I was hooked. I was like, oh, that's me. That's what I want to do. And first semester, I was trying to do ROTC because I was still in the Guard. I thought I wanted to be an officer. Had the two kids. And I went from the junior college to Fresno State, and I get my butt kicked. I get put on academic probation.
And are you working as well?
Yeah, what's the balance?
That time
like,
I had
kids, college, work.
Yeah. It was. I was not. No, I was working. Yeah, I was working at the VA working part-time. They had a VA work study, which was pretty nice. Yeah, so I was working. Yeah, the balance was it was pretty rough. Although what I will say about Fresno State, what was nice about it, and being broke, I at least qualified for a lot of financial aid, so at least I had assistance there. The other thing they had is they had a child care center that was fully subsidized, which was really a godsend. And one of the things that I'm very grateful for was that program and the people that made it very easy for us to use. That's really what enabled me to get through college, was to have that child care program that they had on campus. So yeah, so I was my wife was working full time, and I was raising. I had to get the kids, the two girls, ready in the morning, and have to do their hair, and then it'd be pigtails, all kind of cattywampus, and feed them breakfast, and they would go to school with me, and they were all bulldogs, and so I would drop them off, and they're in school about halftime to 3/4 time. I'd pick them up and go home, and my work was part time, so I would kind of work around the schedule, and I would make dinner and kind of get all that stuff set up. And we had one car, so I have to go pick my wife up from her work down the street, and we just kind of did this round robin thing, working together. So it was it's kind of like the best of times, the worst of times, because we were broke as hell, and in the process we were there. It took me 6 years to get my 4-year degree. That's what a genius I am. So the first year and a half we were on welfare. We got off welfare, which was hard, but it's pretty humbling to go through that experience where you're getting food stamps and subsistence, and it's really all from your own volition. So if you have any level of pride, it pains you every time you have to use it. So we did get off it.
Is that kind of what drove you? So it sounds like you had a kind of a massive change in applying yourself. Was that just from, you're getting older and the kid and just the actual real life situations, or were there things that helped you do that to become a better student, to kind of get more focused, or was that just kind of natural?
Yeah, I think it's interesting because it kind of comes from two different angles, right? Like I was motivated in construction or in the Army. I did really good work. I got promoted. I was put in charge of things pretty quickly, and so I definitely had drive in that regard. Now, trying to get the educational side of it together, that's what I had to really work on, was to figure out how to make that happen. That was my biggest kind of internal struggle that I had. Did that answer your question, Tasha?
Yes. Yeah.
So I wanted to add a comment there, and Shannon, from listening to this part of your story, incredibly humbling, and you're incredibly humble talking about this journey. Everybody's story and journey is different. I don't want to take away from other people who, when they look back and they say, it was a challenging 4, it was a challenging 5 years. And when I think about my kids and, Donovan in particular, who's going through school now, and it's a hard 4 years and he's working a part-time job, but he doesn't have 2 kids and a wife that he's got to go get. And he's not on welfare by any means. And hearing that story, it is inspiring. It's like, it can be done. It's not just the application of the student, but it's, I want to get this done. I'm going to get it done. And I know your wife, we've talked to your wife. I know you had a great partner in that. But it's absolutely inspiring for those listening saying, oh, I can't do it. You can.
Yeah.
Oh, you can do it. Yeah. And thank you. I guess I look at it this way, Anthony, that I'm one of those people, unfortunately, that if it were easy for me, I wouldn't have done it. And I kind of put myself in that position to work myself out of it. So it's kind of hard to pat myself on the back, because I really feel like that's, I created it, right? So it was my obligation to put my family in a better position. And it did. That's what gave me a ton of inspiration. Every time that I want to screw up and I do my homework, I look and there'd be a 2-year-old looking at me going, okay, I got to get down and get this stuff going, A constant reminder of, like you can't screw in. You have responsibilities, and this is, like you have responsibilities to them. They didn't ask for you to bring them into this world, but they sure, the expectation is, and they should expect that you provide for them and take care of them.
Yeah, I love it. I love it, Shannon. I want to go through your 20s and your 30s and your 40s, and get us to where you're at, and then I want to spend some time, and no rush by any means, but
sure, yeah,
get into leadership and things. So tell us about your 20s. You graduate college. Sounds like you have a pretty good idea of what you're going to do and what you want to do.
Yeah. So I graduated. I was deep in my 20s when I graduated. I was 27. So my 20s were a lot of college. The guard, I was in the guard through, I think I got out when I was 25 or 26. We got activated for the LA riots in '94. So my unit was running around downtown doing that, which was right in the middle of the semester of school, which was fun. But the early part of the 20s with a lot of Army buddies and a lot of good times hanging out with them, and then also raising kids at the same time. So that was fun and terrifying and struggle all together. And I'm glad I did it, but I wouldn't do that again. Coming out of college, and kind of one of the neat things about the program I went through with getting a degree in survey engineering is that the 4 years I was at Fresno State, I basically worked in surveying on and off part-time through the whole time. So, and I made pretty decent money, which helped out a great deal. So I worked in the field that I was studying, which really helped. By the time I graduated, I had a really good sound understanding about what I want to do and what I could do. So I graduated at 27. I went to work, and for my field, it's imperative that you get licensed. There's a California state licensure, the license of professional land surveyor. So my focus was get licensed, and it takes 2 years after you graduate to get the experience so that you can apply for the exam. The exam was very difficult to pass. The year before I took it, 9 people out of 500 passed it.
Oh, wow.
And I was determined I was going to pass. I got a degree in it. So a lot of people don't have degrees in it. So I thought, yeah, I've got to make this happen. And so I studied my butt off and took it. So it took 2 years. And so I took it basically 3 years after I graduated and passed it.
Nice. Very nice.
So it was 12% passing rate. So it was more than the 1.8 before. But yeah, so yeah, it was a lot of work, but that really was my focus. And in the process, I got promoted very quickly at work. So I was a project manager within that period of time. So yeah, once I guess my feelings were that when I came out, I felt like I was trying to make up for lost time. So I didn't want to mess around. I wanted to work in private practice. I didn't want to go to the public side, which was slow and bureaucratic. I wanted fast growth, fast acceleration. I wanted to do as much as I could do, learn as much as I could, get licensed and get going in my career. So that was my 20s. I was hell bent on, I wanted to buy a house by the time I was 30. I wanted to get licensed by the time I was 30. I had goals in my mind. Now, I didn't share that with my wife. At least I thought I did, but I didn't. which we'll talk about at 30. So that didn't work out for me.
Yeah, so very focused in the 20s. And so going into your 30s, what role or what position are you sitting at going into your 30s?
Yeah, so I was a project manager with a private engineering firm in my 30s. And I bounced around, let's see, at that time. Yeah, I'd worked for one engineering firm, and I left and I worked for, when I was 30, I think I was working for a land survey only firm as a senior project manager out in the Bay Area.
And as a project manager, do you have people that are reporting to you, or is it an individual contributor position?
No, I had basically had a team that I managed, and so and we had some shared resources. But in general, you manage about 5 people as a kind of a normal project manager.
And was leadership something, or maybe not in that word, but was that something that intrigued you, or were you more of like, oh, I want to be an individual contributor, and found yourself there?
Yeah, no, I'm a social critter, so I did not want to be an individual contributor. I definitely have had much higher EQ. My IQ, I think we've established, is not that high. So with that, I work really well in groups and teams, and being part of a large family, the dynamic, you kind of get like a sixth sense when something's spinning up, and you also have a need to be around people. So yeah, I've always gravitated towards leadership, building teams. That's something that's always intrigued me about the field. And when I was getting involved with surveying, it's a very technical field, and there's a lot of introverts that congregate to this field because they can be individual contributors, and they really like that. For me, I saw an opportunity to go, I can really be, king of the dip S's, so to speak, if I go into this field, because I can actually work with people. I can work with clients. I can help, manage projects. I can do all of these things that, I'll learn how to do all the technical stuff. But there's, on the EQ side in this field, there's a lot of people really struggle with the relationship side of it. So I saw that, Natasha, really is the biggest opportunity for me to establish. And quite frankly, it's what really accelerated my career. So very quickly, I was managing projects, managing people. So like within the first 5 years, I was managing I was a survey group leader for an engineering company, and we had 30 people working for us.
It's important that you called out EQ. It's so, so important, especially in leadership. So I love that you actually, know that that's something that helped progress you. I think it's huge.
So definition of EQ.
That's all I got.
Give us the definition of EQ for those that don't know. Me.
Well, so it's emotional, emotional intelligence, right? So it's I look at it this way, and I'll give you the layman's view of it. It's really the ability to work with teams, work with people, be perceptive at the environment around you as far as relationships go. As composed to the IQ, which is literally, hey, we've got a calculation. Can you run this calculation? Somebody how fast they can do it, and that is an intelligence question, right, to go through. So those are my viewpoints on it.
Yeah, I absolutely agree as well. It's so important in any role, especially leadership. And when you're going through that, Shannon, and you have a team, whenever you got that team, so you're natural at this, you have a high EQ. Are you, taking leadership courses? Are you reading on it? How are you developing as a leader? And when you look back to that 30-year-old leader versus where you're at today, 20-something years later, different leader? Yeah. Have you grown?
Oh yeah. You have to constantly learn, right? A couple things. So my leadership style, so it comes from my father, it comes from the military, it comes from being a scrub on the football team. I think there's a lot of kind of hardship and reality that hits you along the way as well, and maintains your perspective. That's one of the important things. I think we've all worked for people that have unrealistic expectations of the team, of people, and it really makes things hard. And so you have to be relatable. You have to be connected. You have to be aware, right, of what's going around you. And so my father was a very effective leader. And it's interesting. I follow in his footsteps because, he struggled getting his engineering degree, and he has a pretty funny joke where he talks about at graduation where the head instructor is talking about, because he went to work for the city of LA, and he went to school at Utah State at Logan. And so the dean of the school is actually at, giving the speech at the commencement ceremony. And he's using my dad as an example that pretty much the dumbest one in school got the highest paying job. So he was very effective, and it was his EQ, and funny guy. I get a lot of my humor from him as well. And that's the other thing too, is, you got to leverage your humor. You can't always be so deathly serious. You have to look for opportunities to, crack a good joke and bring a team together. But I learned a lot of valuable lessons from him. The military helped kind of form leadership styles as well. And that's, there's a blessing and a curse of the military. The military is really good at, they'll give you responsibility very young, and then your buddies will screw you over, and then you get your butt chewed. All right. And then you have to, and then you realize, like, hey, like, I'm not gonna get chewed. I won't hold you accountable because I'm being held accountable. And you learn that lesson really young. That's an important lesson to learn, because that's something that, that I think a lot of people, young leaders, struggle with. So one of the things I got from the military was figuring that out, so I could kind of nip that in the bud, so to speak, early on. The curse with it is that we're wildly impatient. We struggle with bureaucracy.
Really?
It's, if you're working in those environments, yeah. It's gotten me into trouble. I've been asked to leave a couple jobs, and that kind of stems from some of that too. So you got to take that into account. And so those are things that really formed my leadership style. Now, as far as reading books go, I've had project management courses, I've had leadership courses, I've had DISC assessments, I've had Watterson, personality profiles on the course of kind of going through this process. And I think I'm kind of jumping around here. I think we haven't made it to my 30s yet, but I think to me, it's you pick up little nuggets along the way, and then how do you apply them? And there's failures and successes, right? If there's a failure, you've got to be introspective and say, hey, what's my level of responsibility with this failure? What did I do wrong? How did I play into this? And once you're able to do that, then you can figure out, okay, well, here's what I'm going to do differently, or here's what I'm not going to do. And I think that's really the key to success on owning your leadership ability, is having that ability to be reflective and to constantly learn.
Yeah, I agree. And we will come back to your journey, your career journey, because I think this is an interesting area, and I have one more question around it. And then as we go through your career, we'll come back to the leadership, but I've known you for a long time, and great human being, great man, hilarious, but you're also intimidating. And I've heard this about myself once or twice before, but as a leader who gets that, and maybe I'm wrong. Maybe no one's ever told you that before. But let's assume for right now that they have. How do you overcome that? And are you conscious of it going in, and then as you've grown in your career into this particular role, are you aware of it?
Yeah. Well. Oh yeah. Yeah. Not for. Yeah. I used to laugh and I used to think it was funny, and not funny. Because I could. There's parts I could leverage about it to kind of get what I wanted. But you wind up shutting a lot of people out because they won't even talk to you. And so it's not, from a leadership standpoint, you don't want to be so, the word intimidate, so they don't feel like they can approach you, right? And you don't want that. You want to make sure that you surround yourself with people tell you what you need to hear, not what you want to hear. And if you're intimidating, you're not going to get a whole lot of that, right? So for me, it's a process to break that down. And it's a constant struggle because it's, I've got this scowl on my face that I have to constantly work on. I have to work on smiling. I think a lot of my humor comes from everybody thinks I'm so serious, and I'll crack a joke and it freaks them out. Like, what was that? So I've had to work on smiling, and I actually kind of go back to my 30s. I mean, I was so focused. I'm going to do all this stuff and go along, and in the process, my wife and I had completely melt down, and we almost get divorced. We have 4 kids at the time, and we were ready. We were both looking at each other, and we were ready to walk away from each other. And I was working a job managing 30 people. I was doing really well, but I was also struggling because I wasn't getting along with my bosses. And so there was a ton of stress with that. There was a ton of stress at home. We had huge financial problems. We weren't talking. And I had to swallow my pride, and I went to marriage counseling, went to therapy. And I went initially to support my wife because I thought she was the crazy one, and she's the one that needed it. And after a couple of weeks of going through the process, I looked at the therapist and I said, "Well, is she fixed?" The therapist goes, "Well,
my gosh.
what are you?"
Whoa.
She goes, "Yeah." She goes, "Well, what do you mean?" I go, "Well, she's good. Is she fixed?" And she's like, "Well, it's a process. We got to work through." I go, "Okay, well, I got some S to say to talk about." She goes, "Oh, okay." So, and I start, just bringing the stuff up from my childhood, and I think I think moms and dads get a bad rap from therapy because you bring a lot of stuff into the room, things that that you didn't like about your childhood. It's just it's things that happen to you, or you perceive, or you kind of carry with you that that you do have to find a healthy way to deal with it. And so I wound up going through therapy for 2 years, and we went religiously once a week, and it really was a life-changing event for me because. And this is, I was in my mid 30s at the time, that I had wild success on some fronts, but then I was struggling with relationships. And one of the things that I found out in the process, Anthony, was people say you're intimidating, and like, how does that make you feel? And with the whole thing, oh, it's good. And like, really, you like being a jerk? I had to go through that whole exercise. I'm like, well, no, I don't like that, And the most valuable lesson I learned from it is that I'm also very emotional, and so. I think I kind of go back to my upbringing, all the acting out and everything else, and response and being overly sensitive if somebody says something with the this tight knit family. I had to learn how to control those emotions, and that was the most powerful thing that I learned in that process, was that something comes up and makes you feel jealous or you're mad, and you go, "Oh man, why am I angry? Why am I anxious?" And I literally have a process that I go through that I recognize like what it is. And the feelings are there. If you have anxiety, or you're jealous, or maybe a job I didn't win that we went after, and all these negative thoughts come in your head. And what I found, and what the kind of tools I put in place in therapy, is that for me, I focus on one thing that it's before me that I can do that needs to get done. It's what it is. There's always something that I can just focus on and work on. And I focus on it. When in 15 minutes that feeling goes away, I come back and revisit it, and I have a different viewport on it. It's it's essentially your caveman brain transitions to your cerebral cortex, right? So it basically goes from your brain stem to your cerebral cortex. And I go through and I can analyze. I go, okay, well, I didn't win that proposal because the reality is I wasn't as prepared. The company that won it, they've already had the contract. They put the work in. If I want to win the next contract that comes out, I've got to put myself in a better position. And that's helped me out immensely. That was kind of step one of that process of kind of formulating that mindset. The next thing was that I was having fair level of success as it really coming out of the therapy. It made me much more successful because I wound up moving into a role that actually took me from Sacramento down to Southern California, where I was managing a basic team of 300 people, and this wildly successful.
This is in your 40s now, or are you still in your 30s?
Yeah, my 30s suck. What do you talk about?
Okay, so we're in your 40s.
Well, it sounds like you grew a lot. So
there's a lot of growth.
Yeah. I took notes for you, Anthony, don't worry.
Yeah. There was a lot of growth. I mean, we met. I was in my late 30s. That's after therapy. That's when you and I got together, and I had a different perspective. And I had I shouldn't gloss over it. It was amazing. I went from almost getting divorced to falling in love with my wife again to us really coming together and us really growing. It was. I really should take the opportunity, and I want to take the opportunity just to express my gratitude towards that process of going through it. That we came, a millimeter away from ending our relationship with 4 kids, and that would have been devastating for everybody. And so I'm very thankful that she didn't quit. I didn't quit at the same time, and we stuck out and we worked through it. And it really changed my whole worldview. One of the things is that I wasn't the smartest one in the room. I wasn't the smartest one in the relationship. That I married somebody that was really bright and motivated. And I learned, like, I basically just let her free and let her do her thing. And it was amazing. It really freed me up. And so, my 30s was really that time of transition. So my late 30s, financially, we were well off. We, just really enjoyed life. Met a whole group of friends that really, because of the position we're in, that opened us to be able to do that. And it really was, at this point, I'm at 54. It was one of the better times of my life. Transitioning from my 30s to my 40s was awesome.
Yeah,
it's powerful.
It was very powerful. I didn't think you were going to get me in my feels today, Shannon. Thank you for sharing. Yeah, it really was powerful, just taking us down that journey. And incredible. Yeah. I'm very happy for you and Cosette, and knew some of this, didn't know all of it. I remember the good times. We had quite a few good times. So going into your 40s, you've set the stage with where you're at in your 40s. And then going down to Southern California, you're taking on a team of 300 now, you said?
Yeah. Yeah. So a couple cool things happened. Cosette went back to school and she was majoring in business. So this is where a lot of the business books came into place, because I basically I was reading all of her books that she was going through the business school. And so I got a lot of interest in it. And so and it was good timing too, because in my business, you transition from kind of more the technical to running the business as you move up the ladder. And so the company I was working for got bought by a large publicly traded company. And so I was learning about all the ins and outs of going from a private company to a public company. And that was interesting, and how they manage projects and how they manage people. And so, so that was all going into play. And at the same time, I was getting promoted and kind of growing up the ladder particularly coming out of therapy. I was much more effective at it. And so an opportunity came up for a big project. And this is San Bruno gas pipeline explosion for PG&E, really sent a shockwave through the natural gas industry in the state of California. And so SoCal Gas and San Diego Gas and Electric, who provide all of the natural gas for Southern Central California, had to go through and upgrade their whole pipe network. And these are thousands of miles of pipelines and valves and all kinds of stuff. And so I was working with Jacobs Engineering, and so I was on the team that won this program management job. It was massive. The first phase was $1.5 billion. And so I got asked to come down. I worked on the proposal. We interviewed, and it was one of the times I was really impressed with Jacobs. We were sequestered for 2 weeks, and so we did nothing but prep for this interview. All day interview. We knocked out the park. We get selected. And then they say, hey, we just need you to come down for one day just to kind of help transition. I went down for one day and I never left. They had no idea how much survey work was involved with GIS work and what I did. And so once I got on the ball in the first day of it, and we just kept growing and growing. And so we built a program from scratch. I was leading that effort, and it was was really exciting because it was early 2012. So we're kind of coming out of the recession. And so it was this massive program and building it up. And so I kind of reached out to my network and people within the industry that I developed good relationships with and started putting this team together. And within the first 2 years, we grew it to over 300 people. It was a team of 19 consultants, 50 full-time staff working directly for me, and then we directly managed all the consultants. And we got great accolades from the client, many things that we accomplished, and and from the California Public Utilities Commission as well. The program that I was managing was recognized for. We had all the companies working were all diverse companies, and so we had the most successful program they've ever had in history, and the way we managed to put it together. It was I had some outer body experiences running that team because of the way I was able to put it together. That with all the different contributors, that we had this meeting. I called it a scrum. We hold it weekly, and the different managers would kind of rotate around, had everybody calling in, and it was transparent and open, and we made sure to really focused on everybody's well-being. Safety was kind of our number one common thing that we focused on to talk about that, and then we talked about project performance and things we do and how we can knock out obstacles out of their way. And it was really enlightening, and I was able to collate kind of all my experiences at that point. The fact I came out of therapy and put myself in a different position, that I was actually able to be very successful in that position. The other thing is that I was delving out tens of millions of dollars in contracts. And so you can believe the people that were really interested to talk to me and tell me how awesome they thought I was. And also how intimidating I was. And so I literally had to work on smiling.
Any insights on team size? So, have a little bit of experience with both small teams and large teams. And I think they each come with their own complexities and all of that. But once you get to, a team of 300, any call outs on struggles of leading a team of that size?
You have to have, one person's not going to effectively manage that, right? So you have to have a great team of leaders below you. The structure needs to be set up so that people are empowered at the right levels too, right? And really the job at that point is you have to really focus on identifying impediments and removing them and making good decisions for the team. So it's, when you're a direct kind of frontline manager and your accountability, it's really hard to, once you get past 5 or 6 people, really effectively manage them and lead them, right? Without having anybody else below you. And that depends on what you're doing. Some fields, maybe have the ability to do more, but in our field, it's very difficult if you're directly managing people to be managing more than 5 direct reports. So I kind of try to structure things that way, and that's the most effective.
That's a great call out.
That is. And Shannon, you talked about it a little bit, but would you have been as successful in that role if you had not gone through the struggles and the counseling in your 30s?
No, I was going to talk about, it was interesting. These companies would come talk to me and tell me how awesome I was and everything else. And I had been through enough life at that point that I literally told them, like, hey, look, I'm in this position right now. A year from now, I'm going to be back doing what you're doing. Just, so this is temporary. I had a sense, I knew it was temporary. I knew it was like, the opportunity that I saw was to basically build this team, put it together, but it was temporary. It was going to be some finite period of time. And I didn't let that go to my head. And if I were younger, that probably would have went to my head, or if I didn't have those experiences, the struggles and coupled with the therapy. Right. So it absolutely played into the success. It enabled me to stay humble and grounded and to not let kind of all the hype and everything else go to my head.
That's fascinating. That's something I struggle with. I'm like, I can't see something as temporary, or Anthony, you often say like seasons. I'm like, no, I don't. I notice it's a season after it's already passed, but never in the moment can I, I just, at least right now. So it's something I've been working on. So it's fascinating that you said that. I was thinking of it.
Yeah. We talk about it a lot, Shannon, or I talk about it a lot, whether it's good or bad. Like when we're on our highs, and I said, okay, it's great. Let's celebrate today and appreciate the moment. but this isn't to define us in any way. And when we're at our lows, same thing. Learn from it. It doesn't define us. These are seasons, and it took me many, many years to recognize that. Many seasons to recognize that. So I love the conversation. We've been talking almost an hour now. It goes by so quick. I want to spend some time on how you got to your current role as CEO and the owner of your business. So you have, it sounds like you're in a fantastic season. You're doing really well. You knew it was going to come to an end. Yeah. So how did you make that transition?
Well, I think it's kind of an interesting story because, like, Natasha, you were talking about, kind of going through the struggles that I had. So starting my own business really terrified me. After all the things I'd accomplished, the thought of having to take a massive step back and going out on my own. I had gotten my salary to a pretty high level. I got pretty comfortable. Got a nice house in the suburbs. So what do I want to take all this stuff on for? But the one problem I had continually is that there wasn't anybody I wanted to work for. I was really formulating my opinion on how I thought the business should run, how we should treat people, where the opportunities are in the industry. And I would go to work for different people and expect them to take my lead, but I'm working for them, which really is unrealistic expectation. And so one of the things when I was running that big program, I had 19 of these small businesses that are working for me. And the thing that was really humbling that I learned is that I brought them on board and I thought, hey, I'm working for this big publicly traded company. I'll mentor these little firms. I'll really help them out. And I brought them on board and, I'll be damned. They all were really good. They were great at what they're doing. They were, I was talking directly with owners. They were bought in. They were motivated. It was the exact opposite. I learned from them instead of them learning from me. And I came out of the experience really inspired, thinking about something I never considered before was starting my own business. After working with some of these companies, I thought, hey, maybe it's something that's possible. But I still was really reluctant to do it. And I never shied away from hard work. I think it was taking the step back as what scared me about it or why I resisted it. And it really was my wife, Cosette, who finally just said, hey, I'm tired of hearing you complain. There's nobody to work for. It's now or never. I don't want to hear about it anymore. And she was the one that really kind of kicked me in the butt and made me take that leap, help shove me off the cliff to do it. And so we decided to start the business. And it was, what really inspired me to do it is that we were kind of talking as we were getting into this, I think, before we started recording about, the industry. I think it's pretty common in all professional industries these days that you have a kind of handful of people that have a lot of experience, way more people that have no experience, and there's nobody in the middle. And so I saw that as an opportunity. My vision was with this business was we need to find people that have a baseline education and want to do this job, and then we need to train them. We need to bridge that gap. If we can find those people and do that, then we can outperform our competition. We can, because all anybody's saying is, I can't find anybody. I can't do it. The person with 10 years experience isn't out there. So I thought we can answer that question. We can actually run a business here, whether it's hard or nobody exists. We can find them, we can train them, and we can grow. And that's what the opportunity was. That's what inspired me to do it. I was running a small business, 40 people, same thing, complain. And so we started this up, kind of started from square one with that vision in mind and started down that process. And, it has not been easy as any starting a new business is, but it's been very rewarding. And we are being authentic. We're following that vision and that mission, and we're having success. And it's, for me, after working 20 something years, at even the VP high levels with some of these companies, it's so much more rewarding than running your own business. And there's times at night, like I'll wake and I'll be looking at the ceiling going, I don't know, make payroll. I don't know what I'm going to do. I'm kind of worrying. And this weird calm comes over me because I realize, I literally tell myself, well, what are you going to do about it, Shannon? And well, let's get more and figure it out. And I go to sleep, and it doesn't carry with me anymore. And when I was working those other jobs, I was always worried about, the levels of people above me that I had to kind of dance for. And, look, you're working for them, right? And nothing against them, but that caused a lot of stress for me and a lot of conflict. So that's really what led me to start the business. That's what led me to stay in this business. I'm going to keep this business going. I have no plans of retiring anytime soon. I really enjoy it. I have a ton of energy, a ton of passion for it, and I really enjoy the team that we've developed. They're a great group of people. A lot of them are really young, and they're motivated. It's fun working with them. They learn very quickly. There's a huge gap in the knowledge, but that they're answering the challenge, and I'm seeing it before my eyes how we're able to do things that 2 years ago we couldn't do. We're knocking out of the park today, which is awesome.
That is awesome. So how many years have you been in business now?
4 years.
4 years. Congratulations. It's really, really awesome. And so I want to talk a little bit about leadership. And, you're in a unique position. You've had smaller teams. You've had, teams of 300. Now you're running your own business, and the decisions that you make as a leader impact not just you and your team, but your entire business. So if you think about the top 2 or 3 leadership principles that you could share with us, your philosophy on what those are and how you apply them.
Yeah, I talked about it. I think a lot of people have the same tenets for it, right? It's gratitude is a big part of it, is being aware and being expressing gratitude. If somebody does a good job, even if somebody just does their job, make sure you recognize them and make that part of it. We were on a call the other day, and I had a kind of a gratitude discussion with some people that were extending an olive branch to us that really didn't have to, and it really touched them, because it was a heartfelt message that I sent them. Humor is a big part, I think, of being a very effective leader. It's really the ultimate of it. Just getting people to smile. If you just smile, you feel better, right? It's a physical function that happens in your body, so that's an important part. And I think authenticity with a little bit of vulnerability is really key to being an effective leader. It's Anthony, I think one of the things that my dad used to talk about, and was kind of reinforced in the military as well, is that leadership is taking the blame when things go wrong and deferring the credit when things go right. And corporate America, that's really not leadership. Corporate America is more like, you take credit for everything, and it's like, and you defer the blame to everybody else, and these people kind of escalate. But that's a position, that's not leadership. You don't really follow people like that. They'll kind of stab you in the back and everything else. And so I think that's a very important distinction. The title doesn't equal leadership.
Yeah, absolutely. And been in corporate America now, I don't know, 25, 30 years. I can't believe I'm saying that. But to your point, those true leaders that are taking the blame and deferring credit, they stand out. It's easy. It's incredibly easy to see them, and who they are in an organization, and people follow them, and I'll follow them.
They get fired too.
Yeah.
Has happened to me a couple of times. Yeah. Oh, it's your fault. Okay.
Very, very true.
So Shannon, what about finding people to lead? So I think it's very interesting that you have the consciousness of like, hey, we're okay hiring people that don't have 5-10 years of experience on their resume or whatever that might be, or just being willing to teach them. And so, that could also get you in trouble. So what do you look for in those people? You're like, oh, I'm willing to teach you, this part of it. But what are some of the things that you're looking for in the people that you're willing to do that with?
Yeah, it's always the intangibles. It's, the twinkle in the eye. I mean, you see like people that have a desire to do kind of above the job, that have an interest, and you challenge them. You give them some opportunity. You stretch them. Give them enough rope not to hang themselves, but to come close. I think that's really the key. You can't kind of mollycoddle them and baby them. You have to kind of be aware of do they have the ability to do it? And even if they don't do it, still give them an opportunity, test them. See, some people are just a little bit more reserved than others. I mean, we've got introverts and extroverts and all these different personalities that until they kind of get the opportunity, you never know. And so that's one of the things that we do here is we have conversations about that. Hey, let's give so-and-so a shot at that managing, see what they can do. And we've been pretty impressed with that. And sometimes it's disappointing, but you don't know until you try and you test them.
So how do you manage that disappointment? Because it sounds like going into it could happen. It has happened. So what are your thoughts around that?
It's accountability. So you have to have honest conversations with with whoever you're asking to do something, that there's a failure, have a conversation about them, help them identify what went wrong, what the part was in it, and what to do right and what to do better. And also listen too, because one of the things I talked earlier about emotions is that make sure that your emotions are in check so that you're not accusing them. It's don't talk fault. That you don't want to say it's your fault. Don't ever use that. You have to talk about responsibility, right? So those are really important discussions, that if there's something fails, talk about the responsibilities, right? Because then you can have a two-way conversation to help together identify who was responsible for what, right?
Yeah, I can't remember who told this to me, and Natasha and I talk about it. My leaders, we talk about it all the time, is you want to create an environment where it's okay to fail, and there's no mistake that we can't fix as a leader. Even if I have to go on a 5-mile run or go into another room and cry about it, it's okay, because otherwise you never get to see, to your point, you never get to see how far someone can stretch sometimes until they make that mistake. And then it just allows you to level up time and time again. So absolutely appreciate that.
Such a good point. Yeah.
So a couple more questions, Shannon. Be sensitive to time. I'm going to ask my staple question. This is incredible conversation. If you had one more person that you could talk to, living or dead, who would it be?
Yeah, I'd say that would be my father. And he passed away in November of 2020. So he was. It's weird. You get choked up at different things, different times.
Take your time.
I'm fortunate because I had a really good relationship with him, and it's not like there was things that were left unsaid or undone business. Right. I talk with him often. He'd been a civil engineer. Of course, I pretty much followed in his footsteps with my career as well. And so, one of the things he was really excited about was when we started this business. And before he passed away, he was actually able to see when we had the office space and we had Conaway Geomatics up on the wall, and he was able to see that, and it was really exciting. So I think what I would really like to share with them is just the journey of the business, because he got a twinkle in his eye. His dad passed away when he was I think 15 years old, and his dad had a couple dry cleaning businesses, always a businessman. And so my dad was always interested in the business side, but kept having kids, and so he didn't go in that direction. So he was really interested once we started this business. And so it would be really nice to just it's not to brag, it's just to share with them the journey of it and where we're at and what we're doing. He just got really excited about all the processes and procedures and client development and personnel development. So yeah, that would be my wish.
Yeah, and I don't think it's bragging at all. Thanks for sharing, Shannon. It doesn't matter how old we get; we all want to make our dads proud. And I'm incredibly happy that he got to see the office and what you were doing and where you were going. And I'm sure you have conversations with him all the time. So thank you for sharing that.
And I'll ask my staple question. And you've given so many good answers throughout this, I think, that lend towards it, but it is my staple question. So if you could talk to your 30-year-old self, give yourself one piece of advice, what would it be?
Get your ass in therapy. And I swore, sorry.
That's okay.
Worth it for the swear word.
I have a feeling that's going to make the reel.
I'm typing it out too. It's good. It feels like it was powerful, impactful, and that's very often the story. So yeah.
Shannon, so I have one more question before I close this out. This is new, so take your time and think about it. I may know who our next guest is, but we're going to act as if I don't. So regardless of whether it is grandpa age or a millennial, give me a question that you want me to ask on the next episode. What do you want me to ask our next guest?
That's a good question.
Yeah, I'm thinking Yeah, it is. I mean, I do want to compliment you guys. So you guys do a really good job of active listening and asking kind of timely questions. It's I think that the thing that kind of intrigues me, and this is after listening to a bunch of them, it's finding, how did you kind of find your career? I mean, you asked that, you kind of asked that either directly or indirectly, right? But it's what process did you go about to find your career? Like I said, the thing I find interesting, like for me, is because I was a little bit older. Like once I committed to my degree, like I was all in, and that's what I've done, my entire career. And college was very, very impactful for me. It was getting an engineering degree. It's a direct A to B as far as success and what I'm doing. So yeah, I think kind of drilling into that process would be interesting, because like Natasha, I mean, you were insanely motivated at a young age, right? Like, I got to get through, I got to get going. Like, I'm just blindly determined, right? And then all of a sudden you're there and you're like, hey, shit, how did I get here? What do I care about? What am I motivated, right? Like I'd say for me, I haven't, I mean, obviously I had a lot of emotional baggage I was bringing with me and I had to deal with, but my career, man, I've never really seriously wavered off of it once I committed to doing it.
All right.
Commitment issues over in this generation.
Okay, that is the question that we will ask on the next episode. So Shannon, thank you so much for spending the hour with us. Before we go into our Inspires, any last words you want to share with the people that are listening, or family, or anybody? Any last things that you want to say?
Yeah, I think if there's one thing that I'd like somebody to take out of, I guess, from the story I shared, is that, don't give up. Don't buy into the voices in your head that, you're putting stereotypes on yourself. Challenge yourself. If there's something you struggle with, challenge yourself to find a way to overcome it. There's a way around, really, around any obstacle, with hard work and determination that you can do it, and you can find your path, and find your path. It's just because the person next to you, it's easier for them to do something. For me, I had to learn how to be a student, and it took a while, but stick to it. And the rewards are huge, and you'll be very satisfied with the outcome.
Excellent. This has been incredible. And Shannon's coming out. He's actually staying at the house for our July 1st event. So you want to come give Shannon a big hug, because I feel like giving him a big hug right now. Come out, Shannon and Cosette. You can see him and hang out. So we're gonna go into our Inspire Thursday. I'll go, Natasha will go, and then we'll go Shannon. So I'm gonna read mine first. Mine comes from Jessica Benoit. So her Inspire Thursday is Donovan's Tito, who is my father-in-law. He inspires me because he is knowledgeable, loving, funny, passionate, and strong. I enjoy every time I get to see him and share stories with him. He makes me feel like I'm part of the family, and I feel grateful to have him as a grandpa figure. I love you, Tito, which is Freddie Shabil. So excellent. I love these Inspires. So
I know.
I love Freddie too.
I do. I love all of these posts too. And I just realized as I'm about to read this, I have no idea how to say this last name. So we'll put in the newsletter, but this is Peyton posted it. She writes, my Inspire Thursday goes out to Sophie Marcella Smith. She is my best friend, an amazing mother, a hard worker, and one of the realest people I know. Not to mention my favorite person to laugh with. She inspires me to be the best version of myself and just be myself unapologetically. She loves my babies like she loves her own, and my little family is just so darn lucky to have her. To meet a friend later in life and just click the way we have is something very special. We love our Ophi, and I am beyond thankful for our friendship. I have a tendency to pick these girl best friend posts, but I can't get over them. I love them. So thank you for posting, Peyton. It was good.
Yeah, it was really good. All
right, Shannon, you're up. Who or what is your Inspire?
My Inspire. Yeah, I thought about this quite a bit, but I can't go away from my inspirations of my wife, Cosette. So we've been married for 33 years now. Coming up with learning to grow together, and really seeing her grow into the woman that she is has been very inspirational. She went back to school and earned a business degree, raised 4 kids. She's a CFO of our company. She's insanely bright, motivated, tenacious, and it's just it's a pleasure getting to work with her. It's pretty crazy to think that that we're married and we work together. She's my business life partner, and thank God for going through therapy together and learning really how to to appreciate her intelligence and what she brings, and to open up and to listen and experience that. It's been truly inspirational to me, and I'm just so blessed that I get to work with her and live my life with her. So.
Wow.
That's such a good one.
It is. And it's really hot in here. So my eyeballs are sweating, Shannon. That's what it is.
We can't see you, Anthony. I wasn't going to say anything.
You guys made me cry, man. It's not fair.
I was like, oh my goodness.
Oh, big teddy bear.
Well, Shannon, thank you so much for sharing, and just the whole entire conversation today. Like, this is exactly why we do this. And for me, it was so enlightening. I take notes every single episode, but there are so many things that you shared that are just relevant to me, and I'm hoping that the listeners get something, and they always do. But if at the end of the day it's just for me, I get so much from these conversations, and yours was absolutely just wonderful. So thank you so much for being open and sharing your perspective, and authentic and vulnerable, which you talked about as a leader. It also came through in the conversation. So thank you so much for being here and being a guest and being willing to share your story.
Well, thank you guys. I know how much work it is to put this stuff together while you're working your day jobs too. So I've listened to, I think, almost all the podcasts. I really do appreciate it. It's I like the positive take and the inspiration and the kind of art that you guys are extracting out of people. I find it very fascinating. So thank you for your efforts.
Yeah, absolutely.
Thank you.
I love it. I love you, Shannon. I appreciate you being on the show. We're gonna have a good time in a couple of weeks. I can't wait.
Yes.
Yeah, love you too. And Natasha, pleasure getting to talk to you face to face. So we'll definitely see you, I guess, on the 1st. You better be there.
Oh, I will absolutely be. It wouldn't be a party without the millennials, so I will 100% be there. Actually, it probably
Challenge
would.
accepted.
Okay, it probably actually would. Anthony is more of a party than I am, but anyway, come to the event and you'll find out. But yes, I will be there. Looking forward to seeing you in person. Please tell Cosette that we both said hello, and I think I'll close this out. All right.
All right.
Gramps Millennial and Shannon out.